book signing event with the Supermodel Beverly Johnson, and I actually had an opportunity to speak with her just a few minutes ago. Let me go ahead and play a little bit of what we spoke about.
I decided to write my memoirs, and I was asked a number of years ago, and I said, "Oh, I'm too young." But and then finally I got old, and I decided that if I did it, I was going to do it, and I was going to be very candid, and I was going to talk about everything, warts and all. And so I didn't plan on anyone getting anything out of it. I just wanted to tell my story, stories that meant something to me, and that were important to me and important to my life and important on my journey. And so a lot of those are, very challenging, and a lot of those contain obstacles. And sometimes, I know for myself, I love reading stories. I love reading autobiographies and biographies. I love reading how people did what they did. And those are inspiring to me. And I think as African Americans, we tend to be very secretive about our history and our lives. I know I, as a child, would always ask my grandmother and great-grandmother and mother, about different things in their lives. And they were very, not really willing to share some of the stories, I think because of their painful past. But I feel that it's really important that we leave our stories. And possibly they might be inspired or aspired by my story and how I navigated through the waters of becoming a high fashion model. I wanted to become a lawyer. I had no aspirations of being a model. Didn't know anything about modeling, fashion, never read a fashion magazine. We had Ebony, that was it, in our home. I came from a background in Buffalo, New York. We were pretty sheltered about what was going on in the world as far as race and prejudices. Of course, we knew it. I looked at television, Martin Luther King at the time, and I was very impacted by the civil rights, and was one of the reasons why I wanted to be an attorney when I got older. But so when I got into the modeling thing, and that's a whole nother story of how I kind of fell into that world. My goal was to be the best and to be the top, and so that's what I was working towards. And when I was with, fortunately, one of the biggest agencies in New York and in the world at that time, which was Eileen Ford, and also was a woman, first time I saw a woman that had that kind of power. I never saw a woman wield that kind of power before. And she was a mentor, and so we used to have these discussions as to what I wanted to do. I wanted to write a beauty book, I wanted a makeup contract. I really knew that this woman could share with me her knowledge and help me on my journey. But then when I got to the crucial part where I told her I wanted to be on the cover of Vogue magazine, is when she told me that I would never be on the cover of Vogue. And I didn't really know why, and I didn't ask why not. I just knew that this was the kind of woman that when she said something, she meant it. And I wasn't going to get that cover staying at that agency. I changed agencies, and I left on a very good note in the way of, I told her this was strictly a business decision, and I hopefully, if I ever wanted to come back, to the agency, hopefully she would welcome me with open arms. And I went to her competitor, Wilhelmina, who was a Wilhelmina model with Eileen Ford and who had her own modeling agency. Well, I talk about, the 70s and that era. We came out of the 60s and everyone thought we had overcame, but we really didn't. But in the 70s, and particularly in the fashion world, where we existed in this very elitist bubble. And one of the things that, as a model, one had to do was to remain thin. And one of the things that was very prevalent in our profession was cocaine. Because cocaine, you didn't have an appetite. It wasn't addictive. Back then it wasn't addictive. And it was a very elitist drug. It was an expensive drug. And little did we know that it's a very dangerous drug, and it was very dangerous to do some of the things that I personally had to do to remain thin. So I wanted to talk about that, and I had never mentioned that. I talked about a lot of things and throughout my career, and I've been very transparent, but as far as the addiction to a drug, a lot of us didn't make it out of that, and a lot of us continue not to make it out of it. And also, for me, my sobriety is very sacred to me, and very personal and sacred. But I felt that this was an opportunity where I could share that journey that I had and how I was able to come out on the other side. I always felt that my family support was always there for me, and it's really, people underestimate having really a great family, and you know, mother, father, and siblings that gave me the foundation in order to stray, but you know, I had that foundation to come back to. And I think that I wanted to tell a lot of the fun things that happened. And for me, as a model and as an 18-year-old, going to New York City, you know, living a really amazing life, one of the things I've always wanted to do was to make money to help my family. And I had two older siblings that were in college, and I really wanted to contribute. And I was able to do that, and I saw how important money was and what freedom it gave you. And also I've learned a whole new thing about myself, about learning about the arts and dance and theater and things that I never knew I even, you know, had an aptitude for. So that was interesting, the people that I met, you know, from the designers to the artists to the musicians, and it was just a whirlwind. It was really a whirlwind. And, you know, being around artists like Andy Warhol and Keith Haring, and I didn't think Andy was an artist. What do I know, you know? Thank goodness he had given me some of his art, but I was like, this guy's not an artist, you know. But, you know, and the Rolling Stones, and also, you know, Michael Jackson, and, you know, these were all my peers, and, you know, Elizabeth Taylor, and it's just, yeah, you do. I knew that I was in rarefied air, but I also knew that as one of the only black persons that are, you know, the token, I like to say, that it was a responsibility that I had to be able to, you know, introduce black hairdressers and black makeup artists, because they weren't in the business. They didn't know what to do with your hair and your makeup, and photographers, and in that way, I felt that, you know, we were, you know, making a contribution as a group, as a community of people in the way of fashion, because we're such big contributors in fashion. So it's great to be able to, you know, work and help and influence, you know, black fashion designers and hairdressers and makeup artists. When I was writing my book, I told my writer, Elsa Samuels, who's a journalist, a black journalist, who worked with Newsweek for 17 years, the story about my Cosby encounter, that I was drugged by Bill Cosby. And she, you know, typed it up, and I was surprised she wasn't surprised, and I asked her, you know, because I had never told anyone this story before. She said, oh, I've been hearing about this for years, for decades. I was like, really? And then we typed it up, we handed it in to our editors at Simon & Schuster, and they came back and said, we can't put this in the book. This is a legal liability. We'll be sued. We can't put this in the book. And I was like, well, okay, well, you know, told my story. And then in December of 2014, all of this happened with Barbara Bowen and a lot of different women coming out talking about being drugged and raped by Bill Cosby. And I'm sitting there looking at the television going, oh my God. By the grace of God, I wasn't raped. but I was drugged by this man. This is exactly what happened to me. And I heard these women being vilified and re-victimized and called liars, and I knew they were telling the truth because part of their story happened to me. And, you know, I wrestled with my conscience, and I asked my family, because they would go, oh no, Bill Cosby, my daughter was, oh no, Mom, oh no. No one wanted me to say anything. What's in it for you? There's nothing in it for me. And finally, you know, I had a talk with my God, and, you know, and I decided to tell my story with Vanity Fair. And I didn't realize it was going to have the kind of legs that it had. But my principles and my conscience told me that I should tell my story. And then I got the call from the publisher. Only then did I get the call from the publisher saying, you know, about that Cosby chapter, we like to put that in the book. So that chapter was written before all of this. You know, as women, we're taught to be voiceless. We're taught to be, oh, that's okay, they didn't mean it, you know, keep it to yourself. You know, a man comes into a room and he demands to be heard. I feel as women, we ask to be invited into the room, and then once we get in, we're grateful that we're there. I don't want that for my granddaughter, and I don't want that for my daughter. I want them to use their voice and to speak up, particularly when there's a wrong or an injustice, to be able to have the courage to come forward and say, you know, I'm important, this happened to me, and I deserve to be defended. Particularly people see celebrities in a certain light, and I've been around a long time, and people, I think that they know me, and they do, but they don't really know me. I mean, they know my career, but they don't really know that I had a life going on when I was going through, and I had this big career. And also, for me, it's a way of, you know, talking to women who, you know, remember the magazine covers and who supported me throughout the years in all of the different products and projects and things that I had, television shows and other books and beauty books, and it's a way of saying, you know, thank you for your support.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Roundtable with Steve. I hope you really enjoyed what we spoke about today with Beverly Johnson. Stay tuned, and as always, you can check roundtablewithsteve.com and see some of our previous episodes. Thanks. You guys have a great one.